Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is persist. Let's take a look at some of the ways we use this verb. The first way you're likely to hear the verb persist used is to mean to continue firmly in an opinion or in a course of action in spite of or despite there being some difficulties, opposition, or failure. So with this particular definition, let's think about one person who continues to do a particular action. That action might be difficult, but yet they continue it. Or there could be opposition, people telling them stop or don't do this, yet they continue. Or maybe the person failed the first time they tried this action or activity. They continue. So that's sort of what you should remember in connection to this verb. Continuing with something. The second and third definitions I think of it as being rather connected, so those are to continue to exist or to be prolonged. And in connection with these, I feel like I've heard this verb used often in commercials for pharmaceuticals or for different types of medicine. You might hear a phrase like, if symptoms persist. Symptoms can be many different things, but maybe it's a cough, right? That. So they're saying if you continue to have a cough, then it might be call the doctor or stop taking this particular medicine. If the cough is prolonged, it lasts for a very long time. Again, the idea might be you need to see another doctor or adjust the amount of medicine you're taking. You should know that persist is a regular verb. To make the progressive form, all you need to do is add ing to form persisting. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. The base verb, persist, ends in a T sound, so our past tense ending is going to make an id sound. We're going to add an extra syllable to this word. Persisted. Persisted. I have two phrasal verbs that you may encounter with persist. So let's discuss the first. It's persist in. And both of these words, or both of these phrasal verbs rather, are going to be connected to that idea of continuing. So persist in is to do something repeatedly and show no intention of stopping. Okay, so an example of this. That country persists in human rights violations. So, so that I'm not bad mouthing any one country, because I think there are several that we could put their name in this sentence. But what it means is the country, the government continues to violate people's human rights. They could do that a number of different ways, but they are doing this repeatedly, and there are no signs that it is going to stop. The second phrasal verb you might hear is persist with. This means to continue with some action and be rather committed to continuing it. So that's what steadfast means, rather committed to continuing it. So this is kind of a I'm never going to give up type of attitude. An example of this is he persisting with his acting career. Acting is a very difficult profession to be successful in. So this question is asking, is this particular person continuing, and are they rather committed to the career they have chosen? Now let's continue using our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Today we'll practice the simple present and the present perfect. We use the simple present to talk about habits and routines. And the thing to remember with it is that if our subject is I, you, we, or they, we can just use the base verb in the affirmative. But if our subject is he, she, or it, then we need to add an S to the end of the verb. Let's take a look at the affirmative example. Record high temperatures persist in our region. So kind of meaning our area here, area of the country. Here, record high temperatures, this is plural, so this would be like saying they persist in our region. That's why you don't see an S there. If I want to make a negative simple present sentence, I need to use either do not and the base verb or does not and the base verb. Here's an example of that. She doesn't persist with new hobbies. So she might try new things, but she kind of gives it up rather quickly or easily. If you want to make a yes or no question in the simple present, you can start with do or does, then you'll have your subject and then the base verb. So notice I'm only using the verb with an S in the simple present affirmative with he, she, or it. So let's take a look at our yes or no questions. Do COVID-19 symptoms persist for some people, right? The answer, unfortunately, is yes. Some continue to have these prolonged symptoms. Could be difficulty breathing, tiredness or fatigue, and many other unfortunate symptoms. Now let's take a look at the present perfect. We're using this verb tense to talk about an action that started in the past and continues into the present, or that was completed at some unknown time in the past. Many times I'll call this the indefinite past. So we don't know when, and that might not matter. To make the present perfect, we need to use have or has, and then the participle form of our verb. And since persist is a regular verb, our participle looks the same as the past tense. Let's take a look at our affirmative sentence. The pattern of racial residential segregation has persisted into 2021. So this sentence might sound rather complex. So residential is referring to homes where people live. And what it's saying is, and maybe we need a little bit of history here, there used to be policies that made it difficult for certain races to live in certain neighborhoods. And this pattern, or in some cases, these policies have continued into the present day. If I want to make a negative present perfect sentence, what I need to do is insert not after have or has. So our pattern here is has not, and then the participle, or have not, and then the participle. Here's another example. His health issues haven't persisted. So here they have not continued, they have not been prolonged. Finally, if you want to make a yes or no question in the present perfect, you can start with have or has, whichever form matches our subject, which comes next. And after that, we'll use our participle form of the verb. Okay. In this example, yes or no question, I have a rather large subject, or rather long subject, I should say. So let's take a look at that. Has the demand for home construction and renovations persisted? So again, the demand for home construction and renovations is my subject here. So this is sort of the interest. Many people during the pandemic decided, hey, I'm going to fix a certain room in my house, or maybe I'm going to build a whole new house. And so the materials have really gone up in value or in cost because of that big change in interest or demand. Now, let's spend just a couple minutes looking at words that are related to our verb persist. The first word we're going to look at is the noun persistence. One way to use this noun is to mean the firm continuance of a course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition. You can see that this connects really well to the meaning of the verb we looked at first. Right? An example of this noun in a sentence could be, persistence really paid off for Tim. He was just offered his dream job. So here, this idea of continuing to do something led to something positive. This noun, kind of persistence, or as a quality, is considered generally to be quite a good thing. A second way to use this noun, persistence, is to refer to the continued existence of something. Let me give you another example of how that might be used. We need to examine students' persistence in our training programs. This is something many schools and colleges will look at, but are students continuing to exist in their colleges or training programs in this particular sentence? Now, let's take a look at the adjective persistent. This can have two different meanings, although they're again still closely connected. The first could be continuing firmly in a course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition. An example of that adjective could be Elizabeth Warren has been persistent in her fight to build financial security for all. So here we're describing a U.S. senator who really enjoys this word, I believe, and likes being described in this way. So she continues in her course of action, trying to make changes to certain laws and policies, despite there being a lot of opposition. So other people who disagree with her and don't want her plans to come into existence. A second way to use the adjective persistent is to mean continuing to exist or endure over a prolonged or very long period of time. An example of this could be, there's going to be persistent rain over the next few days. This is something you might hear a meteorologist say, or you might know that as a weather forecaster. So someone is describing, we're going to have lots of rain. The rain is going to continue over these next few days. The last word we'll look at today is the adverb persistently. It means in a persistent manner, or it could mean continuously. An example of this adverb in a sentence would be, Germany persistently violated EU limits on air pollution. So what this means is they didn't violate it just one time. They continued to do it again and again and again. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you'll subscribe to Sharpen Fluency's Verb of the Day. Thanks for watching.